The woman who promised to help me reach my potential spent 8 years convincing me that everything I naturally wasn't good enough. I became the perfect husband she always wanted and lost myself completely in the process. This is the story of how learning to disappoint her saved my life. My name is David, and I want to tell you about the night I realized I had been living someone else's version of my life for 3 years, and how finding the courage to disappoint the people I loved most led me to discover who I really was. It was a Friday evening in November when I found myself sitting in my office at 9 p.m., staring at a stack of financial reports that needed to be finished before Monday. The building was empty except for the security guard, and through my window, on the 34th floor, I could see the city lights stretching endlessly in every direction. I should have been home hours ago. My wife Jennifer was hosting her monthly book club, and she had specifically asked me to be there to help serve drinks and make small talk with her friends. But instead, I was here voluntarily working late on a Friday night, because the thought of going home and pretending to be interested in their discussion about some literary novel filled me with dread. At 31, I was exactly where everyone expected me to be. I had the corner office at a prestigious accounting firm, the suburban house with the perfect lawn, the luxury car, and the beautiful wife who came from the right family. On paper, my life looked like success, but sitting in that empty office, I felt like a fraud. The path to this moment had started 8 years earlier when I met Jennifer at my cousin's wedding. She was 25, gorgeous, and worked in marketing for her father's real estate development company. I was 23, fresh out of college with an accounting degree, and completely intimidated by her confidence and sophistication. Jennifer came from money, the kind of family that had country club memberships and vacation homes. Her parents drove luxury cars and attended charity galas. When she agreed to go out with me, I felt like I had been chosen for something special. "You have such potential, David," she told me on our third date. "With the right guidance, you could really go places." I thought she was being supportive. I didn't realize she was describing a project. Jennifer had very specific ideas about what our life should look like. She began molding me to fit that vision from the beginning of our relationship. She picked out my clothes, decided what restaurants we went to, and gradually introduced me to her social circle while encouraging me to distance myself from my old friends. "Your college buddies are fine, but they're not really ambitious, are they?" she would say. "You want to succeed, you need to surround yourself with successful people." She wasn't wrong about my friends lacking ambition in her terms, my buddy. Marcus worked as a park ranger and spent his weekends hiking and playing guitar. My roommate from college, Alex, taught high school history and coached basketball. They were happy with their simple lives, but Jennifer saw them as obstacles to my potential. Under Jennifer's influence, I threw myself into climbing the corporate ladder with a determination that surprised everyone, including myself. I worked 70-hour weeks, took on every challenging assignment, networked aggressively at industry events. Within 5 years, I had been promoted 3 times and was earning more money than I had ever imagined possible. Jennifer was proud of my success and made sure everyone knew about my accomplishments. "David just got another promotion," she would announce at parties. "He's the youngest partner track associate at his firm." I knew he had it in him. We got married when I was 28. The wedding was everything Jennifer had dreamed of. Elegant, expensive, and attended by all the right people. I remember standing at the altar, looking at this beautiful woman in her perfect dress, and feeling like I was watching someone else's life unfold, but I pushed those doubts away. This was what success looked like, and I was lucky to have someone who believed in me enough to help me achieve it. The cracks in our marriage started showing about a year after our wedding, though. It took me 2 more years to acknowledge them. Jennifer had very specific expectations for how I should behave, what I should be interested in, and how I should spend my time. She had turned me into her ideal husband, but I was starting to feel like I didn't recognize myself anymore. "David, we're having the Hendersons over for dinner Saturday night. Please don't talk about work the whole time like you did last month. And wear the blue shirt I bought you. It makes you look more approachable." Every social interaction was managed and choreographed. I had become fluent in small talk about wine, golf, and real estate trends, even though none of these topics genuinely interested me. My natural tendency toward dry humor had been replaced with polite laughter at other people's jokes. The most painful part was how completely I had abandoned everything that had once brought me joy. I used to love reading science fiction novels, playing basketball with friends, and tinkering with old electronics. Jennifer considered these hobbies juvenile and gradually convinced me to give them up. "You're a professional now, David." Grown. "Men don't spend their weekends playing video games or reading comic books." I told myself she was helping me mature. But what she was really doing was erasing the parts of my personality that didn't fit her vision of who I should be. Our intimate life reflected the same pattern. Jennifer approached our relationship like everything else, with specific expectations and clear parameters. Spontaneity and passion had been replaced with scheduled intimacy that felt more like a marital obligation than an expression of love. "We should probably try to be intimate tonight," she would say, while checking her calendar. "It's been a week. And Dr. Martinez said we should maintain regularity if we want to conceive soon." Even starting a family had become another item on Jennifer's timeline for our perfect life. She had decided we should have our first child before I turned 32, our second before 34, and had already researched the best preschools in our area. The breaking point came on that Friday night in November when I was sitting alone in my office, avoiding my own life. I had received a text from Jennifer at 7 p.m. "Where are you? The book club is starting and I need you here. Don't embarrass me by showing up late." Instead of leaving immediately, I had turned off my phone and continued working on reports that could easily wait until Monday. I was hiding from my wife in my own office, and I didn't even understand why. That's when I found myself looking at an old photo on my desk. A picture from college of me and my friends after a basketball game. We were sweaty, laughing, and completely unself-conscious. The person in that photo looked genuinely happy in a way I hadn't felt in years. I tried to remember the last time I had laughed like that, really laughed, not the polite chuckles I produced. At Jennifer's dinner parties, I couldn't remember in that moment. I had a devastating realization. I had spent so many years becoming the man Jennifer wanted me to be that I had completely lost track of who I actually was. Worse than that, I wasn't even sure I liked the person I had become. The successful, ambitious, socially acceptable man I had turned into felt like a costume I could never take off. I sat in that office until midnight, thinking about how I had gotten to this point. When had I stopped having opinions of my own? When had I started asking Jennifer what I should think about movies, books, and political issues? I realized that Jennifer's love felt conditional on my continued transformation into her ideal partner. She didn't love me for who I was. She loved me for who I was becoming under her guidance. But the man I was becoming felt like a stranger to me. When I finally got home, Jennifer was waiting up and she was furious. "Where the hell were you, David? I had to tell my friends that you were stuck in an important meeting. You have any idea how embarrassing it was to host alone?" For the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't immediately apologize and promise to do better. I was at the office, working late on a Friday night when you knew I needed you here. "Jennifer, do you ever wonder if we want different things from life?" She stared at me like I had spoken in a foreign language. "What kind of question is that?" "We want success, stability, and happiness. The same things any reasonable couple wants. But what if my idea of happiness is different from yours?" "David, you're not making sense. You've been working too hard. You're obviously exhausted. Let's go to bed and talk about this tomorrow." But I wasn't exhausted from working too hard. I was exhausted from pretending to be someone I wasn't, and I couldn't keep doing it anymore. Over the next few weeks, I started small acts of rebellion that felt both terrifying and liberating. I bought a science fiction novel and read it on my lunch breaks. I got Marcus and Alex for the first time in months. I stopped at a basketball court on my way home from work and shot around by myself for an hour. Each small act of authenticity felt like remembering a part of myself I had. Buried Jennifer noticed the changes immediately and was not pleased. "David, what's gotten into you lately? You seem distracted and ... different. Maybe I'm just remembering who I used to be before I tried so hard to become someone else." "You're not making sense. You should be proud of how much you've grown and improved over the years. What if I don't want to improve anymore? What if I like some of the things about myself that you consider flaws? The conversation that ended our marriage happened on a Sunday morning in February. Jennifer had planned our entire weekend with social obligations brunch with her parents, a gallery opening with her colleagues, and dinner with another couple who were important connections for my career, as she outlined our schedule over coffee. I felt the familiar weight of dread settling over me. Actually, Jennifer, I'm not going to any of those things today. Excuse me? I'm going to call Marcus and see if he wants to go hiking. I haven't been outdoors in months and I miss it. David, we already committed to these plans. People are expecting us. Then you can go and represent both of us. I need a day to do something I actually want to do. This is ridiculous. What's gotten into you? You've been acting strange for weeks. Been remembering what it feels like to have my own opinions and preferences. Your opinions and preferences led you nowhere before I helped you develop some ambition and sophistication. And there it was, the core of our entire relationship. Jennifer genuinely believed that the person I had been before meeting her was inferior to the person she had helped me become. Jennifer, do you love me, or do you love the project of improving me? That's a false choice, David. I love you, and I want the best for you. But what if your version of the best isn't what makes me happy? Happiness isn't the only thing that matters. Success and respectability matter too. To who? To you and your parents? What about what matters to me? That conversation lasted for hours and covered 8 years of accumulated resentments and incompatibilities that we had both been ignoring. Jennifer couldn't understand why I would want to go backwards to a simpler, less ambitious version of myself. I couldn't explain why success felt hollow when it came at the cost of losing myself completely. If you want to throw away everything we've built together so you can revert to being an underachiever, I can't stop you, she said finally. But I won't stay married to someone who has no ambition or drive. I can't stay married to someone who only loves me when I'm becoming someone else. We separated the following month, and the divorce was finalized 6 months later. Jennifer kept the house, most of our mutual friends, and her certainty that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. You'll realize what you gave up, she told me as I signed the final papers. And when you do, it will be too late to fix it. The first year after our divorce was the most challenging and liberating period of my adult life. I had to rebuild my identity from scratch, separating the authentic parts of my personality from the performance. I'd been giving for 8 years. I moved into a modest apartment across town and started making deliberate choices about who I wanted to be, rather than defaulting to who I thought I should be. I reconnected with old friends and hobbies that I had abandoned. I started playing basketball again, joined a recreational league, and rediscovered how much I enjoyed the simple pleasure of physical competition and camaraderie. I began reading voraciously not the business books and literary fiction that Jennifer had approved of, but science fiction, mystery novels, biographies of people whose stories genuinely interested me. Most importantly, I started making career decisions based on my own values rather than external expectations. I left the prestigious accounting firm and took a position with a smaller company that specialized in financial consulting for nonprofit organizations. The pay was less, but the work felt meaningful in a way my previous job never had. I was using my skills to help organizations that were trying to make a positive difference in the world. My new colleagues were passionate about their work and treated each other with respect. The office culture valued collaboration over competition. And I found myself looking forward to going to work for the first time in years. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I met Lisa at a volunteer event where I was helping prepare taxes, returns for low-income families. She was 29, worked as a social worker, and had a warmth and authenticity that drew me to her immediately. Our first conversation was about books. She noticed me reading a science fiction novel during my break, and mentioned that she was a huge fan of the same author. I don't meet many people who appreciate good speculative fiction, she said with a smile that made me feel like I had been waiting my whole life to have this conversation. Dating Lisa was a revelation. She was interested in my thoughts and opinions, not in changing them to match her preferences. She celebrated my quirks and enthusiasms rather than seeing them as flaws to be corrected. When I told her about my love of old electronics and showed her a radio I had restored, she was genuinely fascinated. "This is incredible, David. You rebuilt this entire thing. How did you learn to do this?" With Jennifer, my hobbies had been embarrassing secrets. With Lisa, they were interesting aspects of my personality that made me more attractive to her, not less. Most importantly, Lisa seemed to like me exactly as I was, without any agenda to improve or upgrade me. She had her own passions and opinions, and she respected mine even when they were different from hers. "I love how passionate you are about things," she told me after I had spent an hour explaining why I thought a particular science fiction author was underappreciated. "You get this look in your eyes when you talk about something you care about. It's wonderful to see." The contrast with my marriage was striking. With Jennifer, I had been constantly performing the role of the husband she wanted. With Lisa, I could simply be myself, and that seemed to be exactly what she was looking for. 2 years after my divorce, I ran into Jennifer and her new boyfriend. At a restaurant downtown, she had moved on quickly and was dating a lawyer who worked at her father's firm. Someone who'd fit perfectly into her world without needing to be molded first. Jennifer looked exactly the same, polished, sophisticated, and slightly cold. When she saw me with Lisa, her expression was a mixture of surprise and something that might have been disappointment. "David, you look relaxed," she said, and somehow she made it sound like an insult. I was wearing jeans and a casual shirt, clothes I had chosen because they were comfortable, not because they projected any particular image. Lisa was holding my hand and laughing at something our server had said. "I am relaxed," I replied. "This is Lisa, my girlfriend." "Lisa, this is Jennifer, my ex-wife." Lisa smiled warmly and made polite conversation, completely unaware of the history between Jennifer and me. She was confident without being defensive, friendly without being fake. As we said goodbye, Jennifer's new boyfriend mentioned that he had heard I was working for a non-profit now. "That must be fulfilling," Jennifer said in a tone that suggested she thought I had given up on life entirely. "It is fulfilling," I said simply. "I'm happier than I've been in years." Walking away. From that encounter, Lisa squeezed my hand and said, she seemed nice enough, but something about her felt performative, like she was acting the part of herself rather than just being herself. "That's exactly what it was like being married to her," I told her, "and what it was like being married in general for me. Well, I'm glad you figured out that relationships don't have to feel like performances." That night, as Lisa and I cooked dinner together in my apartment, simple meal we had planned together because we both enjoyed cooking, I reflected on how completely my understanding of love and partnership had changed. The man who had once believed that love meant becoming the person your partner wanted you to be now understood that real love meant being accepted for who you actually were. The person who had once measured success by salary and status now knew that the only success that mattered was living authentically and building relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Most importantly, I had learned that disappointing people who loved an inauthentic version of me was infinitely better than disappointing myself by continuing to live as someone I wasn't. Jennifer had been right about one thing I had given up everything we had built together. But what we had built wasn't real love or partnership. It was a performance that had become unsustainable. The woman who thought she was improving me had actually been preventing me from discovering who I really was. And I couldn't be more grateful that I finally found the courage to disappoint her. Sometimes the most important transformation happens when you stop trying to transform yourself for other people and start accepting who you've always been. Jennifer's need to remake me taught me that the right person would love me without needing to change me first. And Lisa proved that Jennifer had been completely wrong about my potential, not because I lacked ambition, but because my ambitions were different from hers, and that difference made me exactly who I was meant to be.